First things first, again, thank you, Karen, for the introduction. I've known Karen now for years. Just a fantastic addition to the sport community here in Vancouver. Like she said, I am Jay Demerit, former captain of the Vancouver Whitecaps here in Vancouver. Before that, I was a 7-year pro and captain of the Watford Football Club in the English Premier League, and also played for the U.S. men's national team for just over 5 years, spanning from 2007 to 2011. Like Karen said, as far as the spectrum of an athlete, there probably isn't too many soccer players in this world that have had the spectrum of the soccer world that I have. You talk about experience, you talk about your role as an athlete, and my experience was something of a path that was so rare that in 2011, the soccer community came together on Kickstarter and raised $223,000 in 72 days to turn my soccer story into a documentary film called Rise and Shine, the Jay Demerit Story. It was one of the most humbling things I've ever actually gone through, because there I was, just this guy who went out and did something on his own. But yet the soccer community and the sport community saw what that story was, and I'll share a lot of that story with you today about how those types of ideals turn into documentary films. But it was so interesting to me that people that I had never met before were giving their hard-earned money to make my story into something that other people could watch and learn from. And it turned into something so much bigger than myself, and again, I'll share some of that story with you. But I'm mainly here to talk about leadership and teamwork. Two things that, of course, in a team environment in soccer and many other sports that are here, team environments, there's a lot of moving parts. Soccer especially, there's 11 moving parts in one field. I was a captain, so you're in charge of those moving parts, especially on field. There's a lot of mentality that goes into there. There's a lot of man management as a leader. And there's a lot of ideals that I'll share in stories with you. I'm not a big X's and O's guys. I'm not going to have a 30-point PowerPoint that you guys are going to be writing down a bunch of notes. I'm mainly up here to share my experience. What's experience if you can't share it? And thankfully, I've been able to experience sport at the highest level for many years. So hopefully you guys can take some of the stories that I tell and turn that into key ideas, into little things that you can now practice as you start to develop these young guys, build teams, build some of these young athletes into becoming what we call successful. And now success, of course, comes in many different ways. Success is in trophies. Success is in creating a young leader that's going to be successful in whatever he or she does for the rest of their life. And hopefully today, through some stories, you'll start to see some of the coaches that instilled that in me, or other leaders that I played with on teams that instilled some of these leadership ideas into my brain. And then I was able to carry that into Vancouver, and as I got into the later end of my career, into my teams. So I start in Green Bay, Wisconsin. I'm a kid from a small football town called Green Bay. I'm sure some of you know who they are. They'll be playing this afternoon at about 5 o'clock, so I got to hurry up and get out of here. But that being said, I grew up of the multi-sport environment. I played basketball in the winters, I ran track in the spring, and I played soccer in the fall. I had a dad that was a gym teacher. I had a mom that was a gym teacher. So of course, sports has always been a huge part of my life. My grandma was a track coach for 40 years. There was my dad was a national decathlete, and for me, sport was just ingrained in me. It was something that when you grow up with coaches and educators as parents, you of course, I heard what you guys were asking earlier about, like, what's it like to coach your kid, and what's it like to, I was a kid that had a dad as a coach, but of the second video, my dad was that kind of coach. He pushed me in certain directions, but he never pushed me too hard where I didn't like him, or he never pushed me too hard where I didn't think that what he was telling me wasn't true. And I learned that was all part of my being. And when I finished high school, I had a couple opportunities. I had a Division III basketball scholarship, and I had a Division I soccer scholarship. But again, coming from a quality family, I realized the education side was important, and the University of Illinois Chicago who offered me a Division I scholarship to play soccer, a very small one at that. I still had to pay 10 grand a year just to go to school there in my first year. So it was a small scholarship, but it was something to get my foot in the door. And the second side of that, the education side, was super important to me. And they had a product design program, an industrial design degree that I could study. So that started my college career. I came to University of Illinois Chicago as a forward, 27 goals or whatever. There's accolades there, but I didn't really know what I was doing. In all honesty, I was an athlete. I was someone that was raw. I was someone that was coachable, and I was somebody that coaches could at least trust the fact that I'm going to go out there and give my all. And my first year, my coach pulled me aside and he says, "Hey Jay, I think we might redshirt you this year. You haven't played that at a high level that much. Green Bay, of course, it's not a soccer hotbed out there. It's not something that I had a ton of experience in. But I said, okay, coach, no problem. I just want to play. So just whenever you see fit to put me in, no problem. So I started training, and first preseason tournament, we're down in Jacksonville, Florida, and first game, our starting defender gets a red card, gets sent off. New defender goes on. 55th minute, he goes down with a hamstring injury. They finish the game. After the game, the coach comes up to me. He says, "Jay, I'm not sure I'm going to redshirt you anymore." And I said, "Oh, really?" He said, "Yeah. But there's only one thing. Have you ever played defender before?" And I said, "Well, no, coach. Obviously, you just said that I'm a green-eared forward, so I definitely haven't played defender before. But that being said, I want to play. And I agree with you. I am a green forward, and maybe I could be a potential defender. So I'll be open to those ideas, because ultimately I'm an athlete and I want to play. I want to be a part of that team, and I want to be a part of what goes on the field." And he said, "Okay, I'll put you in there." And from that moment on until where I'm standing now, I never left the back line. I went from an unknown small town forward my first year in college. 3 years later, I was an All-American defender, marking some of the best college players out there. We made 2 NCAA tournaments, and throughout my 4 years, we had the best defensive record in the university's history still to this day. And that's not just down to me. That was down to the team that my coach built. But after college, you have these inklings of, oh, I might become pro, but my experience showed to scouts that I wasn't ready. I wasn't the guy that they were going to pick. Oh, he just started playing defender. I'm not sure. He's a good raw athlete, but he's not very good on the ball. I'm not sure we can take him. The MLS draft came. I thought maybe I would get a tryout or things like that, and I didn't even get one. I didn't even get one call from any professional team. Yeah, there I was, this All-American defender, thinking I'll get a shot, and a shot never came. So a sensible person would say, okay, I have a college degree. I'm going to go get a design job. Thank you so much, sports. I'll see you later. But for me, I looked at that experience as saying, I went from changing my position, learning a lot about the trade, and then becoming this person in just 3 years. Scouts never saw the upbringing. Scouts never saw the fact that maybe I had never done any technical drills except for the 3 years I started playing defender. And there wasn't really a setup in my drills that I learned I could play technically at a professional level. So my thinking, thankfully the most important, says if you can be that good and change your position and become this player in just over 3 years, how good could you be if you hone in on another 3 years? And at that point, I had a friend, an Englishman that I was playing with in Chicago at the time, and he said, "Hey, I'm moving back to the UK to go live with my mom. You should come with me. I think your game suits the English style of play." I said, "Oh, okay. I don't have a chance here." So either way, I knew that I'd have to start at the bottom of the ladder, and I just thought, you know what, A, life experience, B, the fact that I have an opportunity to go play in the biggest soccer jungle in the planet in England, and I still have a roof over my head. I'm going. Saved up my money, I bartended, I worked, I painted houses, I did all sorts of jobs. And I got my degree, decided, okay, we'll park that for now. But I made sure I finished school, which again was part of my thought process, part of my support system, my parents. We have all these conversations. Finish school. Make sure you finish your degree, because if England doesn't work, reality, make sure that you have something to fall back on. But the thinking was, I still have a lot to give. I could still learn a lot. I could still be a pro. I'm gonna go into that jungle and try my best. That roof over my head was an actual roof. But it was in an attic. I lived in my friend's attic, and the attic consisted of a hole that was cut into the ceiling, I swear, with like a hatchet or something. And it was this metal industrial ladder that would go, that traveled up through the hole. And me and Kieran, my friend who I had moved over there with, we went and bought really cheap laminate from Home Depot, and we laminated the attic floor. And we had 2 blow-up mattresses in there. He was on one end of the attic, and I was on the other, and we had one dresser in the middle that had our clothes and our gear. I basically lived out of a suitcase. And I started in the, Kieran said the 6th, but I actually started in the 12th division of the English soccer leagues. Now, just to give you guys an understanding of kind of what the English soccer leagues are, English soccer leagues consist of 4 professional leagues. At the top, you have the Premier League. Below that, it's the Championship, and then League 1, League 2. There's 96 professional teams in England, all within the size of about 1 US state. So I always say, for people that don't really know what that means, what if the NFL was all in Wisconsin? And what if there was 2 Packer teams, maybe even 3 Packer teams, all in Green Bay? And each of them had their own 60,000 seat stadium. And each of them had cousins and brothers and fans and friends that all supported somebody else. And they all lived in this state, but yet the fanaticism and the noise and what that atmosphere brings in the NFL, bring that to one country with 96 professional teams, and that's what you have in the English soccer system. It's built on passion, it's built on culture, and it's built on, my team, who I'll eventually play for, was started in 1881. So you're talking 100, when I was there, they celebrated their 125th anniversary as a club. So you think about where we are in soccer in North America, and I laugh and I say, well, give us another 100 years, we'll be fine. But what I learned going into that jungle is that I got a lot of work to do. So what did I do? I'm playing in the 12th division. I'm making 40 pounds a game. So I would get in an envelope, 40 pounds. Here, coach, thanks, Jay. College graduate, 40 pounds. Well, right now that's about 60 or 70 Canadian, so I was doing okay. I had enough money to buy a beer on Saturday, and I had enough money to buy food for the week. That was it. And I would wake up every morning, and me and Kieran would go for a jog. I would take my ball, and I'd go find a wall in the neighborhood. There was a local AstroTurf. If that was filled, I'd play. And if not, I would work on my technical ability. I'd draw little X's on the wall. I would all over these walls, and I would work on my passing. Hit the X's. I would go for runs to make sure if I did get that trial that I'm looking for, I'd be fit. The last thing you ever want to do is when you're a developing athlete is to get your opportunity and miss it. And that happens far too often because people just aren't prepared. They weren't ready. And I was determined to be prepared. And I did that, and I thought, I was also real. I knew I wouldn't land on English soil and walk up to Manchester United's training ground and be like, yo, I'm this 23-year-old American dude with no experience. Can I get a tryout? That's not really how it works, And so I never, ever would have expected to do that. I expected to work. I expected the struggle. I expected to make $40 a week. But I expected that I would be in an environment that if I continued to improve every day, I would have that spotlight on me and somebody would be able to see me and give me an opportunity. And that opportunity finally came after over a year. So you're thinking about how long do I want to live in an attic? I don't know, 1 or 2 months. But then you start playing and you start learning about the culture and you start seeing how big it actually is and you go, okay, this might take a little bit more time. It does get frustrating. I went on a trial once to a 3rd division team. I didn't have any money, but I had enough money to buy gas, and it was a 3-hour trip one way to a 3rd division team called Oxford United in the south of England. And Kieran and I drove down there, spent our week's wages just to get there. Kieran happened to be on trial too. And we walked in the locker room. Here's your uniform, guys. You go sit at the end of the bench. No one talks to you because they think that you're there to take their job. And you sit there, and in the 87th minute. Jay, Kieran, get over here. I walk onto the field. I think I ran up, pushed the line up once, and then the whistle blew. I'm like, there, that's my shot. There we go. Thanks, guys. Appreciate it. I'm going to go back home to the U.S. But in a way, that's the mentality that a lot of people have in these trial-type environments. Oh, I had my shot. Oh, this coach didn't like me. Okay, thanks. I'm out. I had my shot. I didn't take it. I'm not going to make it pro. But the resilience, and again, the mindset to know that those things are coming, to know that, hey, instead of going, that was my big chance and my failure, it was, hey, I've now spent 6 months to try to get a trial. Guess what? I finally got a trial. That means I'm moving in the right direction. It doesn't mean that I can't, that means that hopefully I'll get another one because I'm doing the right things to get them in the first place. So keep your eye on the prize. Don't worry about that other stuff that's going on. Keep improving, keep getting better every day, stay fit, and keep getting your shot. Sure enough, 2 months later, I get a call from my manager by manager, I say manager means coach in the UK in kind of soccer language, so just so you guys know. I get a call and he says, hey man, I'm moving to a new team. This is a 9th division team. He says, but as we start the next preseason, so this is the next season, he says, we have a preseason friendly against a 1st division team called Watford. Have you ever heard of them? I said, yeah, I've heard of them. And he said, and they're kind of local, because I was living in London. And he says, why don't you come down, train with us for preseason, we'll give you a shot to play against them. So sure enough, we go to this friendly, and I get to play the whole 90 minutes against a 1st division team. I come in fit, I came in ready to play, and after that game, fingers crossed, thankfully, I get a call from the coach, and he says, hey, who is that, or he called my coach, and he says, who is that blonde kid in the back? He seemed like a really good athlete. He says, but we don't have any money to buy anyone, so he's perfect for us. And that's what happened. I literally, he said, I'd love to take you on trial for 2 weeks, and sure enough, that's what you do. It's very rare that when you come from those lower leagues, you don't just go and sign. You first go on a trial. So for 2 weeks, I trained. I'm still the new kid in the corner. I'm sitting with the youth guys, the 16, 17-year-olds, because, you know, all these, honestly, it's so crazy. Like the cutthroat culture over there with soccer is that you come in there and you're an immediate threat. No one talks to you. No one asks how you're doing. And all those kind of things. And it was interesting for me now that I've been on the flip side of that, because now I know. Anytime a trial guy, treat him well. Ask him how he's doing. All that kind of stuff. But it was an interesting experience for me because I'm sitting in this professional environment and I feel like I'm a kid again. I feel like I'm the kid that's on the end of the bench that no one wants to talk to, the kid that sucks, or the kid that, all this kind of stuff that we go through as young adults. And it was really humbling for me. Just to stand in those environments and to feel that like I was 12 years old again. But in a way, it inspired me because I knew that if I could make this team, I can put myself on the other side of that and be a guy that creates a better environment, a better locker room, a better place for guys to grow together, because that's essentially what teamwork is. So there I was. I got two reserve games, and after those reserve games, I had my coach call me into his office. He said, Jay, I've thrown you into a couple uncomfortable situations, and you've more than dealt with them. I'd like to offer you your first contract. So I got a 1-year, £25,000 contract. Still not a ton of money. I still would have made way more than that as a designer out of university, but I was in the door. You know, as young athletes, as people that are trying to be successful in anything, you know, the first step is an opportunity. The second foot is in the door. Now I'm in there. Now I've kicked the door down, and now I have an environment to improve. And that's what happened. There was an injury that first year for one of the central defenders, and I got an opportunity to play. He was an older, experienced guy. His name's Sean Dyche. He's actually coaches in the Premier League right now for Burnley. And he never got back into the team. I know he was pretty upset with me, but that's okay. You know, that's the competition we live for. But my coach, he after that first season, he called me into his office. He said, you know what, Jay, I've really seen the way that you've developed this year. And he said, and what I liked most about you is that the fact that you had an opportunity as a trialist and you took it, and you're never going to let that go. Now you've had an opportunity to play as a first year, a guy that really still doesn't know anything about professional soccer or a high-level environment, because I never really came from that. You know, again, Wisconsin, university that's not the biggest university in the world, and then all of a sudden I find myself in this huge environment of the first division in the UK. And he says, what I like about you is that I gave you an opportunity now through an injury, and then you played the remaining 25 games of our first season as a rookie. He says, and I love the fact that you could take that opportunity and seize it, and you've done it over and over and over again. So I want you. I'm going to offer you another contract. So I got another deal. Now it was a 3-year. And I'm like, yeah. You know, I was no longer on trial anymore. That first year for me, I was on trial. I was getting paid a little bit more, but all a 1-year contract is for me was a 1-year trial to prove that I was good enough. My first year, I had done that. And then my second year, and this is what I'll talk to a lot of today, is the team environment. That coach that hired me, gave me my first opportunity. We lost our first 4 games of that beginning of the season, and he got fired. So we're thinking, who's the big name coach they're going to bring in and try to build the club back up and all that kind of thing. We had just avoided relegation. Do you guys know what promotion and relegation is in the English soccer leagues or in leagues in general? Top teams in every league get promoted to the league above. Bottom teams in every league get relegated to the league below. So we are in the first division. Premier League is still higher. So we're in the first division, and we had just avoided relegation to the second division the year before. So that's why the coach was under a little bit of pressure. And then first four games of the new season, we didn't win them. He's out. Okay, it happens. Winning is a mentality. Winning is something that clubs always want to try to stay right in the mix of. So coaches leave. If you don't win, you don't stay. New coach comes in. He says, we hired a guy named Adi Boothroyd. Adi Boothroyd, I'm sure some of you guys may have heard of him, maybe not. But he had been hired from a local club as the youth director. Leeds United, pretty big club. But nobody had ever heard of him. He was the youngest manager in the whole of the 96 teams. So all 4 leagues. He came in and he was only 34 years old. So we're all like, who is this guy? 34 years old, he's come from a youth director position. He's never coached at the highest level before. And there was all sorts of skepticism. Not for me, because I was just like, oh yeah, great, new opportunity. But, you hear whispers and you hear the older pros and all that kind of stuff. And this guy comes in, and on the first day of training, after, again, the team, pretty low spirits, lost our first 4 games, not very good. We don't have a lot of money, again, to bring in any other players. He comes in and stands in front of our 30 guys, and he goes, hi guys, I'm Adi Boothroyd. I'm the youngest coach in the league. And by the end of the season, we're going to be in the Premiership. And we looked at him like he was from Mars. We're like, what? We've just avoided relegation. We haven't brought in any new players. And yet you're coming in and saying we're going to get to the biggest league in the world? How are we going to do that? And it started with him. And I talk about this season a lot, and I'm going to walk you through this season right now. It started with him. He had this infectious energy. He'd come in and he knew everything about everyone. Jay, how's it going? You're from Wisconsin, right? Yeah, how's it going? Oh, blah blah blah. Do your parents ever come over? How are they doing? Did they like it when did they like it when you're not in town, or did they come and visit and all? He knew everything about me. He worked with the personalities that he had on a piece of paper, and he got to know those guys. Talk about the coaches in the room. First thing you need to do, get to know your players. What did he do? He knew all of us. He knew all of our personalities. So I'll walk you through a couple of the personalities and how we dealt with them. One of the main staple points on our team was an old Scottish guy named Malky Mackay. Malky Mackay had been promoted to the Premier League 3 times. He was big. He was physical. He was tough. He was a fantastic leader, but he was slow. What did he do? He used his mouth all the time to communicate on the field. He was our general. He sat in the back, so again, central defenders, they're the last back line right in the middle. And Malky Mackay was my partner. Right? You look in soccer, the spine of the team usually is a form of partnerships. Forwards partner, midfielders partner, center defenders partner. He was my partner. But what does a coach do when you have a 38-year-old Scottish, and you're Scottish guy, and by the way, don't piss off a Scottish guy because that's bad. But yet you're this young 34-year-old manager that has no experience? How do you deal with a 38-year-old Scottish guy that's been in the Premier League 3 times? How do you do that? And A.D. Boothroyd was very smart in doing one thing. Don't tell him what to do. Have him offer you his experience so you can turn that into this team. He turned Malky Mackay into his second coach. It wasn't a clash thing. It was a, hey, Malky, come here. Let's meet after training. I want you to help me build this team. Great. Now you got the Scottish leader on your side. First key. Second key, manage your egos. One thing about forwards, a lot of times they're the goal scorers. They're the guys with a lot of confidence. But what comes with them is egos. How do you manage the guy that has a chip on his shoulder that doesn't really want to be there? He comes in, he's a little bit upset. You know the guys. We all have them on our teams. What do you do with those guys? Do you stand up to them? Do you push back against them? What A.D. Boothroyd did, and we had this guy, his name was Marlon King. Great, great player, but a confidence guy and a guy that you had to keep happy. So what do? You keep him happy. Put your shoulder around him after training. You say, hey, you're going to give me 2 goals tomorrow. I need you to score because you're our big boy. You're our big forward. Pump his tires a little bit. Give him what he wants to hear. Tell him how important he is to the team. And then he walks out on that day and he is so confident and he goes and starts ripping goals all the time. That's how you deal with those guys. Thirdly, you have your young guns. So you have your up-and-comers, your guys with maybe a little bit more confidence, but tons of skill and tons of talent. Now, what do you do with those guys? What A.D. Boothroyd did with those guys. So these 2 guys in particular, we had our goalkeeper on loan from Manchester United. His name is Ben Foster. He's now played in the Premiership for over 10 years. And Ashley Young, who now plays for Manchester United. He was an up-and-comer. He was only 19 years old, but playing for Watford, he was a local guy. And so now we have these 2 young guns, these guys with an enormous amount of talent that have no business being in our first division, and A.D. Boothroyd knew that. So what does he do? Instead of saying, hey, young guns, do whatever you want, no, he nurtured their talent. Every day, Ashley, come here. I'm going to go put these cones up in each corner of the goal, and I'm going to see if you can hit that 5 times. You have to hit that cone 5 times in the top corner on your free kicks until you can come in. Hey, Ben Foster, goalkeeper, your distribution is some of the best I've ever seen. Now, I'm going to go put cones on each corner of the halfway line, and I'm going to have you hit that cone 5 times, and I'm going to have you hit that, work on your distribution. Nurture that talent. It wasn't about let those guys do whatever they want, just keep them happy. No, young, nurtured talent is the key to their own development. And A.D. Boothroyd, young guy, again, very green, created this environment where it was always learning. It was pushing the guys in the right direction, using the older guys to nurture, to gain experience, and then also using the rest of us. Gaining guys, signing guys that are locker room guys. Everyone knows them. Guys that come in with a smile on their face every day. Guys that tell jokes, guys that keep it light. Keep a couple of those on your team. I promise you it'll help. You don't have to play them all the time or all these things, but A.D. Boothroyd built our team with all of these personalities. And then the rest of those things to combat kind of the yin and the yang theory, right? So you have your young guns that are super, super talented, and you let their skill on game day work. What do you do to yin and yang that? You bring in worker bees. You bring in guys that have a role and guys that are going to work their asses off for the team to let those guys shine, right? So he built this really, really diverse locker room. And by the end of it, by mid-season, we went from a team that was relegated to starting to work together. How did we work together? We grew every day. He created these environments that, for instance, on a Saturday we'd play, on the Sunday we'd come in for a cool-down session, keep it light, get guys stretching, and what we'd do at the end of every Sunday training session, he'd get the physios, he'd get the sports psychologists, he'd get everyone that was on a team. And it's not just the guys that played, it's not just the subs that are out training. Every one of us that was in a Watford shirt on a game day, physios, administrators, coaches, and every player would all go into our meeting room. Every one of us. We had 30 chairs, and he would put the chairs in a big circle. 30 chairs in a circle, and every one of us would sit down, and we would go through the game. Start to create that communication. Start to open the communication. Videos of the game would come on. What happened on that goal? Let's watch it in front of everybody, all 30 of us, and we'll talk about it. Well, to be honest, Coach, I think, on that header, I probably could have came around and helped out Malky there. To be honest, coach, I think that started from me because I didn't track my runner, and he got the ball and was able to play that pass that got him through to score that goal. All of a sudden, it became this open environment where everyone was being honest about their performances, and most importantly, everyone was become accountable with their performances. When everyone's sitting in a circle, you can't hide. You can't hide from that because I'm right here, and I can see what just happened. So instead of going, oh, yeah, I'll just forget about that and move on to the next game, you go, sorry, coach, or sorry, Melky, I should have covered you there, my bad. Melky goes, you're right, I trust you now. Now I trust you. So by the end of that season, we had this circle of trust, and that's what we called it. We called it the circle of trust. And once you gain trust in your teammates from your coaches, now you have an environment to go and succeed. And that environment came right at the right time. It was the end of the season, and we had gotten into the playoff spots. Playoff spots for the first division, the championship, to go to the Premier League. First two spots in the first division get automatic promotion, and then spots 3 through 6 go through the playoffs. Only one team of those 4 gets promoted to the Premier League. We came in 4th, so we played a team called Crystal Palace in the first round. First round of the playoffs, you have a home and away, aggregate score, just like you see in the Champions League. You play at their stadium, and you play at your stadium. Aggregate score between the 2 games is the winner that goes to the final. We played Crystal Palace. We beat them 3-0 in our first game. Came into the second game, again, refocus, circular meeting. What do we need to do now? Let's not make this mistake of taking these guys for granted. One more job to do. I've never seen such a focused and prepared team in all of my career than this team. And it was mainly because, again, we had the leader, we had the visionary, we had the guy in there that instills the belief system, that sets the standard. And then you have all of these moving parts, all of these role players that are just doing their jobs. And that's what we had. And we got into that second round against Crystal Palace. We tied 0-0. That's all we needed to do. We kept it simple. We stayed tight at the back, and we didn't allow another goal. So now, here we are. We have a chance at the Premier League. The Premier League is a one-off game. The playoff final is normally at Wembley Stadium, but Wembley Stadium at the time in London was being under construction. And so they moved it to a stadium, 75,000-seat stadium called the Millennium Stadium in Cardiff, in Wales. So now, all of a sudden, you think that you're in this league and it's that, and all of a sudden you get this camera on you, you get this pressure. Within a week's time, we could be in the Premier League, the best league in the world, and most competitive league, the most lucrative league. Everything relies on this one game. Now, this one game is the most lucrative game in professional sports. Not the Super Bowl, not the World Series. In all of professional sports, the English Championship playoff final to get to the Premier League is the most lucrative sporting event on the planet, because the winner gets into the TV money pool for the Premier League. So that team that was in the first division gets $100 million in one game to build their team now for the next season, right? So imagine the pressure to go from first division, yeah, it's good, but now if you win next week, your team, well, obviously the players don't get the $100 million, don't get me wrong, I wish, but that's not the case. But that being said, imagine that. Imagine if you have, in 1 week away, this prize. So the club all of a sudden goes, oh my God, there's pressure, oh my God, what if we win this game, what's going on? The media is starting to call it, it's a circus, it's like, oh, this team's gonna win. And we were supposed to play, or we were playing against Leeds. And Leeds was a big club, they had all this money, they had just come down from the Premier League, and they were supposed to go straight back up. So they were the heavy favorites. Pressure starts to come, media's there, everything like that starts to happen, and all of a sudden it's like 4 days away from the game, and you can see people are just getting uneasy, and people are trying to settle them down, and it's not really working. And 2 days before the game, we come into training. 80 Boothright, smart guy. He goes, boys, we're not training today. Get on the bus. Okay, where are we going? So we're thinking maybe we'll go to, I don't know, watch a movie or go bowling or do something like that, you know? And we get on a bus, and we're like an hour in. Like, where the hell are we going? We got a game in 3 days. So I start seeing signs, and sure enough, 2 days before the game, we just drove 2.5 hours one way And we were at the Millennium Stadium in Wales. What? Game's not till Sunday, coach. He parks the bus, stadium, dark. 75,000 seats. So you guys know how big those stadiums are. Those are NFL stadiums. Completely dark. He walks the team out to the middle of the field. Gets everyone right in the center circle. It's kind of an eerie feeling, actually, when you're in an empty stadium and it's completely dark. And he looks around and he gets the whole crew in, and he says, now you've been here before. So when you walk out on the field on Sunday, you won't play like you haven't. And we all went, and all this pressure went out the window. Because it was like, what are we doing? At the end of the day, this is what it is. It's a stadium. It's a stadium that's just going to now be full of people. There's no difference. At the end of it all, when you strip all that pressure, all that light, all the fireworks away, at the end of the day, we are the team that deserves to be here, and now we're the team that's been here before. We went up and had lunch at the stadium, and then went back to training. But it was an amazing, amazing way to settle our nerves as a team. It was a way to show leadership, to say, hey, we're all in this together. This is what we do. And as we walked into the Millennium Stadium that day, on the Sunday, let's see, this is what happened. Oops, I don't know how to do this.
Down the back of our necks, haven't we? The atmosphere is absolutely incredible. It really is. Both sets of supporters have come to support their team, and how.
It is a match worth millions of pounds, but it's also a match worth millions of memories. It is Leeds United against Watford for a place in the Premiership.
Just a couple people there that day.
Still with it.
Another corner, another threat from Watford. Ashley Young delivers, and Demerit puts Watford in front. The American makes his mark in the playoff final.
Well, they should have done it before. They've done it now, and Rob Holt will hang his head in shame, because it's not a difficult run for Demerit. It's a simple little run from Rob Holt. He can't believe it. He stood with his man to begin with, watched them on the penalty spot. Now he lets him go. Once he's gone, he can do nothing about him, because he's charging in towards the box to put the header in. Leeds don't have anybody on the post. Not that they'd have saved it anyway, because he hits this with the meat of his head. Bang! Into the back of the net. Look at Neil Sullivan. He's anxious. He knows it's going across the goal. He can do absolutely nothing about it. And Watford are in front.
Well, he's got loads of his mates watching. People around him in that corner disagree. On throw time. Gavin Marn towards Mackay and Henderson, and James Chambers. Oh, it's crept in!
You take him when you can get him.
Chambers claiming it beyond their wildest Premiership dreams. Leeds 0, Watford 2.
Well, it's not the sweetest of strikes, that's one thing you can say for certain when James Chambers hits this ball. But the thing Leeds have done, they've come out in the second half, and Malky Mackay, 2 throw-ins, 2 headers by Malky. He gets it onto him, and look, the deflection comes off Eddie Lewis. The goalkeeper's watching it across his goal. Eddie Lewis closes Chambers down now. Watch the deflection off his leg. There his right leg comes out. The goalkeeper now thinks he's got it for 1 minute and loses it underneath his arm. And then he's hoping that it doesn't hit the post. Unfortunately for Sullivan, it does hit the post, bounces off the back of his arm. And it's 2-0 to Watford, and that's agonising. He rolls it in the back.
Score. You never know, but Watford could score again if Marlon King gets in. Here's Matthew Spring. And Spring has found King. He's onside. Penalty. King brought down. And Watford have the chance to clinch promotion.
Stonewall penalty. You cannot go to ground in the box. Sean Derry, he does you good and proper. What's his issue? Feints to shoot. You've committed yourself, and you do get nothing at all on the ball. And Eddie Boothroyd knows as soon as he sees it, that's it. 10. If we put this in the back of the net, the Premiership, here we come. Not that that's ever been in doubt since they scored the second goal.
Well, Darius Henderson, who was relegated from the Championship with Gillingham last season, could be about to be promoted to the Premiership with Watford. The Watford fans hold their breath. Here comes Darius Henderson, and here comes the Premiership. Henderson scores, perfect penalty, perfect season. The surprise side of the season have saved their biggest shot till last. Promotion to the Premiership.
Right. That was pretty cool. How often do you play that? Well, hopefully I'll do more of this, so lots. But you know, again, you look at those scenes and you look at, you know, I think for us to win, we ended up beating Leeds 3-0 in the championship playoff final, and we were promoted to the biggest soccer league in the world. And you know, again, the reason I kind of broke it all down for you today in this season, you know, I could do that with U.S. national team performances, or I could do that, you know, in a lot of different seasons. You know, every season has a different message. Every experience, you know, kind of tells you or teaches you a different lesson. But that season in particular was where I learned about what good coaches can do, not only on a technical and a practiced way, what we do on the field every day, how to get the most out of your players, but also how to get the most out of your players here. How much it matters to the mentality of a group, how much it matters to grow the mentality of the group, how much it means to start down here and end up way up here in one season. How does that happen? That happens from the visionary. It starts with the coaches. If A.D. Boothroyd wouldn't have walked in as a 34-year-old, if he would have walked in as a young, you know, very, very non-confident guy that was just like happy to be there, and would have been like, yeah, guys, you know, this is a learning process, you know, let's just get going, and you know, maybe we'll see where we end up at the beginning of the season. One of our sports psychologists, he talked a lot about this year, and it's kind of a cool analogy, is that he used to always say all the time, because we were this young group, we didn't, you know, we're pretty naive, and you know, we grew into this team that turns into performances like that. And he said, and we had a lot of young guys, and he used to sit in front of us and go, "Do you guys, Ashley Young, if you were going to walk out at Manchester United, what would you think?" So a lot of times, you know, you're standing in these big environments, or you go play at Manchester United, and you're standing in this tunnel, right? And you're just, whoa, and this crowd's going crazy. There's 80,000 people in the stands, and it's very easy to go, oh God, that's Cristiano Ronaldo. He's really big. He's really fast. He's pretty good looking. Like, what am I going to do? I'm like, it's almost like you get beat before you even get out there. And that's what a lot of these stadiums and these big environments can do to you. But he used to always touch on the fact that if you don't know what you're doing, there's 3 words you need to remember. Act as if. Act as if. If you're standing in that tunnel and you're like this and you're feeling like that, how are you going to go play? You're not going to go play very well. If you want it's same as the stadium as when we got to the Millennium Stadium when no one is in there. If you act like you've been there before, if you persona that idea, I'm here, I'm good to play against Man United. I'm here. I'm going to act like I'm, you know, like I'm here to play. And it's amazing, those mentality shifts that we started to learn, and that's what we did. That game, not only did we deserve to be there, but we acted like we deserved to be there. And that starts to move into the psyche of the other team. Holy crap, those guys look up for it. Holy cow, I don't know if I'm up for it. I'm out of here. And that's what happened. You don't go in a stadium like that and beat Leeds 3-0 if you don't beat them mentally too. So we had a coach that was able to learn those types of things. And then secondly, we had leaders that were not only mentors, but leaders in a community. Guys that helped each other out. Guys that really, really focused on what was best for the group. And that's the kind of, and those two things, and funny that I got asked to speak about teamwork and leadership. And I chose that season to talk about today because there was no more of an apparent, what does leadership mean and what does good teamwork mean than the 2006 Premiership promotion season. And I guess what I can do now is sum up those two things, and because I think we're pretty much out of time, aren't we, Karen?
Yeah, just a few questions after too.
Okay. So, coaches. You guys are all coaches in this building. The formula, never underestimate the power of teamwork. No more apparent in my opinion, and thankfully that was only my second season. So I've got to take all of those lessons that I learned in that one season and now apply it. As I became a leader, as I became a captain, as I became part of these teams, that experience was invaluable to me. And that's the first one. First one, it starts with the visionary. It starts with the coach. He's got to have the vision and he's got to instill that belief. If I don't believe in you as the coach, as a player, there's no way I'm going to listen to you and trust you to be into that next level. It's just not going to happen. So it starts with you. It starts with the coach. Have a vision. Secondly, is the belief mentality. You got to get your guys to believe in you, and I say guys, girls. You got to get your players to believe in you and your system. And how do you do that? How do you get your players to believe? It first starts with the identity. You as the coach, the visionary, you have to set your team's parameters. Who are we as a team? Are we a team that has, big physical players? Are we a team that has little technical players? What formation do we play? All of those questions need to be crystal clear for you guys as coaches. Who are we as a team? Who are my players? Now I find my identity. Now, once you know the identity, now you can build. Now you build your team. How do you do that? By diversifying your athletes. It's not about always picking the best guys. It's not about that. It's about diversifying your team enough so that guy works with that guy. And that person brings this to the team. We got the joker that keeps it light, and we got the hard head that keeps it accountable. We got guys that not only play together in the midfield, but complement each other. This is a midfielder that likes to hold and be defensive. I'm going to pair him with this midfielder that likes to go forward because that keeps our team complete. So it's about building your team. The yin and yang philosophy of one guy does this, the other guy does this, team as a whole becomes set. Second, know your team. Know your personalities. I was so shocked and I just thought it was so cool when he put his arm around me at one of my first training sessions, and he knew everything about me. Oh, you're from Green Bay? Oh, that's good. What was it like coming over here? He knew everything about me, and that immediately drew me to him. I want to know what you want, coach. I'll work for you. You put your effort to know me. I'm going to put in my effort to make you look good and to know you as a coach and to learn from you. So that starts with that. That starts with man management and communication. How do you speak to your players? Do you know what they're up to? Do you know what they're like? Do you know what they're going through? Do you ask them what they think they're good at? Do you ask them what their identity is as players? Those are all key questions in man management. It's about getting the most out of that player, but the only way you can get that knowledge out of that player is to ask them or to show them or to create an environment where they can show you. And that all starts with knowing your team. So get to know your teams. Thirdly, and finally, grow your team. When you grow your team, it starts a lot of times down here. And how do you do it? Circle mentality. It's a group. What did you think? What did you think? Did you think you could have done better? Yep, sorry, coach, I hold my hand up. I saw you. Where were you on that play? Did you not get around? Okay, you got to get around, right? Yep, okay. Now trust. Athletes talking to each other, players talking to each other. It's not coach saying, you did this, it's my way, get out, all this kind of stuff. It's, what did you guys think? You talk, I talk, this guy talks, physio talks. Physio puts his hand up and says, well, to be honest, I didn't think that he was working hard. And in all honesty, we had those conversations in that group with a bunch of men, just being men and being responsible for and accountable for their performances. But when you create that environment, when you create that circle mentality and that culture, for accountability, it's amazing how everything just flows in the right direction. And it starts with that. And then the last thing, never stop raising the bar and keep doing what makes you successful. And it's funny, I'll finish on this, and this is a good lesson. A.D. Boothroyd, that next year, front page of the paper every week, we're in the Premier League, next England manager, 35 years old. And what happened? By the end of that Premiership season, we got relegated. Yeah, we got relegated. We weren't good enough to stay in that league. We didn't have enough talent, but it was a great experience for all of us. But what A.D. Boothroyd never learned was that don't read the papers. He started to get an ego. He started to gain too much confidence. And in the next season, back when we were in the championship, I was the captain of the club then. We had a falling out because there was no circle mentalities anymore. I'll tell you what, there was 10 times or less that season that we actually sat in a circle and talked to each other. It was if you don't like it, this is my team, and if you don't like it, then you can get out, like all that kind of stuff, not in those terms. Lots of other terms that I can't say here. There's kids in the audience. But that's what it became. By the end of that season, I lost my armband because I was too busy trying to figure out what a captain was like and what I was supposed to lead and all these kind of things. And I worried way too much about him and my team's performances than my own. And I didn't play very well by the end of that season. But it shows there's one thing that can make you successful. But if you stop doing it, your ego doesn't keep you there. Your reputation is very instant. Your reputation is only good as your last game. And that happened. What happened was A.D. Boothroyd, he fell down that mountain. And then he got a 3rd division coaching job. And then after that, now he's back in youth development. So if you think about, and it's funny because I still talk to him today. And he's such a great mentor for me because he'll be the first to tell you, I lost it. As a coach, I lost my ability to create a good team. And because that's what he did. I talk about it all the time in team environments, is that I've never been blown away by a guy that was able to inspire a team, grow a team, and to create the success that he did. And then but now he readily admits, he let it go. He let the papers, he let all of this, he envisioned himself in this England job and stopped doing the things that got him there. And that's a big message for coaches to never forget. Yes, you never stop raising the bar, but don't stop doing what makes you successful. Don't let all those successes get to your head or get to the point where your performances, your idea, your ability to create the group goes out the window now. And that's exactly what happened, and now he's out of coaching. So, again, I'll finish with that lesson as you guys go away. But, there's a lot of lessons to be learned, but, again, that season has leadership and teamwork in abundance. And so I think we can open it up to questions now.
Yeah, everyone, just if you have a question for Jay, put up your hand, catch the attention of the staff that have the handheld mics. Maybe I'll start everyone off with this, Jay. Throughout your unique path through sport, you seem to have this enduring pit of faith in yourself. Where does that come from?
I think it comes from a couple things. One is my support system. It's a lot easier to go out and try things when you know that if it goes wrong, you just have people that will be like, hey, it's okay, you'll get better. Or, oh, Jay, it's okay, Jay, if you fail, you can come live with mom and dad for a little bit, and then we'll support you, and then you can get out of the house again, all that kind of stuff. But that helps. Honestly, I was so able to just get out and try to use my wings because I knew that the people behind me would support me if it failed. And that always kind of kept my attitude where it should be. And then secondly I think it's just it's self-belief. I think it's about knowing yourself, knowing what you're capable of and believing in that capability. And I think that's something that I've always just kind of had and also learned over the years. You go through the crap and then you realize when you come out the end that it's totally worth it. Then you're willing to dive into the crap again.
All right. Anyone? Yeah, lots of hands. So there's one at the back there.
Hi, Jay. When you're a young coach or you're coaching a young team, and you're looking at the players and you see the athletes and the ones that aren't, but you're trying to pick a captain for that team or captains. What are the qualities you're looking for in that player, attributes that player might have that will help you build your team?
Great question. And if I had another hour, I would divulge into that side of captaincy and what it means to be, you know, the central cog in a wheel of many influences, right? And that's what a captain is. The captain's the one guy that has to deal with, you know, the coaches. He's got to deal with the players, and he's got to deal with all the outside influences. You know, especially at a professional level, you're the guy that deals with the media. You're the guy that deals with the pressures and has to speak for the team. You're the guy that has to go talk to the coach when things aren't going right, and you're the guy that has to keep the players happy. That doesn't look like you're sucking up to the coach and doing all this kind of thing, right? So, as a captain, you have to do a lot. So, I guess the first thing is to create, is to find the person that's relatable. You know, if I can relate to you, you'll trust me a little bit more maybe than the other person. So I think the first key is to find the person that's relatable to most of everyone on that team. You know, look to see how people gravitate to others. When that person talks, do they listen? And I mean the other teammates and things like that. I think that's the first place to start. And then secondly is consistency. There's a guy that plays for Bayern Munich and for Germany named Philipp Lahm. Have you guys ever heard of him? He's the most soft-spoken, unassuming player on the field. But he's been a captain at Bayern Munich for years, and he captains Germany. But why does he do that? Because he's a 9 out of 10 guy every week. Every week he goes out, and he plays right back, which isn't like the most glamorous position. He's not a goal scorer. He doesn't make big saves as a goalie. He's a right back. But he's the captain, and he has been for years, and it's because of his consistency. As a player, if you have the ability to show up every day, and I know as a teammate or I know as a coach that I know exactly what I'm going to get from you at all times, that's the guy I want the armband to have, because it's when a lot of it's based on trust, and you can't build anything unless it's based on trust, in my opinion. And I think your most consistent people are people that you can consistently trust, and I think those two keys are how I would pick my captain to begin with. And then the rest, you know, is he or she. You know, if he doesn't have to be the best player. He's still got to be pretty good at his job though too.
Do we have one more? Up there.
Super short. To add on to his question, when or do you ever let the team pick the captains?
Yeah, I've been on teams where that happens. I think, again, that starts with your coach, that starts with your visionary. How do you want to set your team up? I think a lot of it has to do with, you know, his vision, his or her vision as to how they want to build the team. Is it if it's a full community team, then yeah, I don't think that there's anything wrong with that. But you got to be careful not to get into popularity contests, because a lot of times it's not about the popularity of a certain player. It's how he leads. You know, your captain should be your best leader, and because the leader, he's not necessarily the best player, but he gets the most out of his team. And I think he's not always the most popular guy, because sometimes he has to say things that will piss people off, and that doesn't necessarily mean he's wrong. It just means that he's doing what's right, and that's what a true captain does. And I think you have to be careful with I think you have to create the team environment first and know that teams can trust each other and be honest with each other, and then they could pick the captain. I think that's the only way that would work, but I've seen it done. So I think, again, it's up to the coach as far as what they want to do to build their team.
Ladies and gentlemen, let's give Jay Demerit one last big round of applause. Thank you very much, Jay.
Good.